After many takes, I've decided not to do something really silly as an intro. Instead, I'm going to be doing this monologue right here. But if you are afraid of clowns, definitely step away from this review, because this is going to be covering Stephen King's new 2017 movie, It. And when I mean by Stephen King's movie, it's actually Andy Muschietti's, who's directed Mama before. Stephen King is the original author of the book It. And it came out in 1986. It has the same exact name. There was a 1990 miniseries on it. There was a TV special that came out in 1990s. It was a week apart from each other. And this is really officially part one of that same exact thing. So let me talk a little bit about some of the plot, some of the pros and cons of the movie, and then really tell you if you should really check this movie out or not. In the fictional town of Derry, where there's a lot of people who are just going missing, and it's in the late 80s, and there's this thing that it keeps taking kids, and really no one knows what's going on. People are just missing, and really what we figured out is it's Pennywise the Clown, and Pennywise the Clown can really only be seen by people he wants to be seen by. And so he's terrorizing all these kids. He pretty much plays on everyone's fears. So each individual kid has a fear of something, and it can transform, the clown, Pennywise, can transform into any of those fears, and it really just terrifies the bejesus out of everyone. Now, something about this movie that I really enjoyed with the plot is that it was very well paced. It was consistent, and it was always going in a place that I thought was relevant to the story and really played on the characters. And I'm gonna get more into that in the pros. But pretty much, these kids have to band together to stop Pennywise. So that's kind of my general summation of this movie. So moving on from there, I'm going to talk about some pros, some of the reasons why I really enjoyed this adaptation of Stephen King's novel. I thought the character development for each of these characters is a reason why we love Stephen King movies. So like the closest adaptation I can see to this movie is Stand By Me, in an 80s kind of form, where it's a group of kids who are pretty much dealing with the time period that they are in, and they have to come together to deal with this monster, or pretty much, unlike Stand By Me, they have to deal with a monster. And so it's really a kind of a coming-of-age story on top of a horror movie, and I think that's one of the coolest things ever, because it really relates to a lot of people. Now, I will say that I wasn't born in the 80s. I was born very early 90s, and I was going to say that most people do not understand the references connected to the time period. However, if you watch all sorts of movies, like for instance Stand By Me, The Goonies, any of the 16 Candles, John Hughes films, I mean, these are all loosely connected obviously, but if you want to understand the 80s culture, you should watch these films. And a lot of the time period that this takes place in, and I think that's something that's really cool about this film. Another thing about this film is, like I said, the pacing is very well done. Each character is developed. You figure out all of their home life, you figure out why you should care about each of these characters, and all the fears that they've gathered, because they each have specific things in their life, just like us as human individuals all have something in our lives that makes us unique and makes our fears kind of unique as well, in some kind of sense. And so I thought that was really cool that they played a lot on that. And so I think that this movie really did a good job at figuring out what people's fears were. So moving on from that angle, let's talk a little bit about Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise the Clown, who actually does a fantastic job here, in my opinion, as Pennywise the Clown. Now, we all remember, if you've seen the original TV miniseries, Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown, and he did a fantastic job. And actually, that's the most notable thing we remember from the original 1990 series, that from most of us who have seen it, is we've seen Tim Curry plays this iconic role. And so he had some big clown shoes to fill, as you would say. And so Bill Skarsgård did a fantastic job. I have not really seen Bill Skarsgård. I've seen his brother and his father do a lot of, obviously, other things. And so I know this family has the acting chops, for sure. And so I think that Bill Skarsgård did a fantastic job of playing a creepy yet subtle clown. He had a voice crack that was just consistent, and he also was uneasy. It was like a mixture of what you would picture a clown being on top of a psychopath. It would be a combination of those two, and it was just fantastically done. So before I rant, there's a couple of cons that I thought were a little detrimental to this film. One is the jump scares. However, the jump scares, see, I have two sides of this jump scares. One, I think it relied on it a little too much, and I think that it was too consistent, and it took a little bit out for me, and a lot of it was CGI related, and I don't really like CGI that much. It's kind of, I've noticed in my movie reviews that I notably take off points if you overutilize CGI, which I think they use CGI pretty well in this movie, but regardless, the pacing of the jump scares were something that I think is a detrimental aspect of this film. One of the good things about the jump scares is, though, that this movie really, like I said, it plays on those fears, so it constantly wants you to be afraid of something, right? And so that actually plays into the narrative of the story, which I think is a good thing. However, I think they overutilized it a little too much. I think I would like to have seen a little bit more character development of some of the characters. I'd like to have a little bit more backstory on some of the characters in this film, because some of them were just, it just showed them, it briefly showed aspects of their life and showed their fears and like why they're afraid of things. I know it focused on several of the characters, but I think it could have expanded to all of the characters. It was fairly lengthy. It was 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I think it went by pretty quickly. So overall, I would say this movie is a fantastic adaptation of Stephen King's novel. I would give this movie a 4 out of 5. I definitely recommend checking this out or owning it sometime on Blu-ray. Definitely get this movie somehow. Go watch it in theaters. I think it's already broken a lot of box office numbers, so I would definitely check this movie out. But yeah, definitely check out my other reviews down below. Definitely check out my channel. I have a podcast as well. There's some stuff in the description down below, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Give me a like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.